the hardest 21 minutes and 7 seconds I've ever endured on two wheels, cycling up Hardknott Pass, 33% climb after 93 miles during the Fred Whitton in 2025. In today's video, I'm going to explain how I got up it. We're going to go over the training I did before the event, the mental tricks I used, and also my bike setup. So getting up Hardknott Pass is hard enough as it is, but after riding 93 miles, it's a different kettle of fish. So last year I went up it after just 20 miles, but I knew this was going to be a completely different kettle of fish. So what I did before the event is I purposely trained the ride to replicate the scenario. So I headed to Snowdonia and I took on the Cowlid, but before taking on the Cowlid, I've already done 65 miles of riding, not quite 93, but close enough. But also there was a lot of climbing. If I remember right, the full ride was about 80 miles with 9,600 feet of climbing. Feet per mile ratio, it's actually higher than the Fred Whitton, but it's not quite as long, so it kind of evens itself out. And I purposely put the Cowlid at the end, so I knew I'd have fatigue in the legs from doing lots of climbing in the day. And the Cowlid is ridiculous. It is, I think, it's just under 2 miles. It averages about 14%. Max is 33, I think. Goes over 30% 3 times. So it's a good way of replicating that situation. And I knew that was going to be physically, obviously, very tough. That goes without saying. But mentally, that was the reason why I wanted to do this beforehand. Experience just how tough that is. And also, I'm not going to have a crowd when I'm doing my training ride. There will be a crowd when it's there on the actual day, and that did help a lot. But if I could mentally get myself up this climb without stopping, I knew that was going to be massive. And a big thing I use with mental tricks getting up climbs, which I know are going to be difficult and probably scare me a bit, is I bring up past memories and past experiences, and from there it's like, right, I've got evidence. So when that self-doubt starts coming into your head, I was like, right, I've got evidence. I've done this before, or something similar. I can do this. It is going to be hard. Don't start fooling yourself. Oh yeah, it's going to be easy, and try and do, how do you word it? Like fake positive talk. It's like, no, it's not going to be easy. You need to accept the reality. It is going to be hard. But if you've got proof, undeniable proof, that you've got things that's like, right, I've done similar, I can get up this. And that was another thing I like doing in my rides before big events. So I try and think about other climbs which I've done which are extremely hard. So right, I've done that, I've got up there. I didn't think I could get up that. Remember that thought as well. Remember beforehand, I didn't think I could do that. And there was times when I got to Hardknott Pass, I was thinking, I feel like I can't do this. My legs are knackered. There's nothing left. But remember, it's like, I've done this before. I've experienced it. I've had that self-doubt and still got through it. And you can only achieve that through reps. So you have to go out, take on these tough climbs, be willing to fail on a climb. And by that, I don't mean be willing to give up. I mean, really give it a good go. If your legs give out or you just physically can't do it, then so be it. But you have to get reps in your head, in your body and your legs of doing things which are extremely hard, because that's what the Fred Whitton is. It's known as the most difficult sportive in the country, and it's for this particular bit at the end. Hardknott Pass, 93 miles, and you got Runners Pass afterwards as well. As well as building up that evidence was like, right, I can do this. I try and come up with things which is a motivation or a reason to keep going, a reason not to give up, because it only takes 1 second to give up. When it gets to the point where it's really tough and your brain is saying, give up, it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard. Your legs don't need to give up, but your mind wants to. You've better have a reason in your head but why you've got to keep going. It doesn't matter what it is, it's personal to you. Me personally, I had in my head, it was like, if I do not get up this, I am coming back next year, no questions, but I have to get up it. And we had beautiful weather like we've currently got today, And I may not get lucky next year, and it may be absolutely hammering it down like it often does in the wettest place in the country, the Lake District, and it'll be far more miserable. And I didn't want to experience that if I don't have to. Another thing I brought up, again from past experiences, there's been times years ago where I used to go up climbs and I'd give up. Not because like you've got cramp or you've got an injury or your bike has failed or something's happened and you've made a mistake. You've actually just given up. But as soon as you put your foot down, feeling that regret, it's like, oh, I really could have just carried on going. And that's a horrible feeling. I've had that on Abden Berth, which I still haven't gone back and done. That was extremely challenging climb. That's a 11 out of 10 ranked by Simon Warren. And it was hard work, like it was the Fred Whitton, going up Hardknott Pass. And there was no injury, it was just uncomfortable, which when it's really, really steep and your legs are tired, that's what it is. But your mind is trying to tell you to give up. Your legs don't need to. And I just had that regret and I hated it. And I kept reminding myself of that feeling. Like, you do not want that feeling. If you have to stop because either you have an injury, you cramp, there's a mechanic on your bike, someone falls over in front of you, so be it. Like, there's not a lot you can do about that. But if you have that feeling, regret afterwards that you gave up and you could have done a bit more, it's a horrible feeling. And I don't like experiencing that. So I remind myself of that. It's like, if you stop, you are going to feel that. And you know how horrible that feeling is. And as I was saying, that decision to quit only takes 1 second. That decision to keep going, you have to do all the time. With every single pedal stroke, you have to say, yes, I'm going to do it. To not give up. To give up, you only have to say no to 1 pedal stroke. I actually worked it out here. My average cadence was 69 going up Hardknott Pass, which equivalates to 1,449 pedal strokes up Hardknott Pass, which I had to say yes to every single time to get up this climb. Right, thinking about bike setup, I saw so many people going up Hardknott Pass walking, and there was quite a few of them. It was like, look, it was like, you're fitter for me. I saw you earlier on in the ride. It's like, I saw you flying forward. You went up other climbs which weren't as steep as Hardknott Pass, and you looked far stronger than me. But when it started getting really steep, they couldn't hack it. And I looked at their gearing, it was like, that is why. It was like, you've not got gearing suitable for this climb. So me personally, I've got a gearing of, on the front, it's a Shimano GRX, which is a 4630. On the back, I've fitted an 1142 cassette 10-speed. The reason why I've been able to get a cassette that big on the back was because of a, use a hanger extender. And that hanger extender allowed me to get my cassette, no, not my cassette, but allowed the rear mech to go a little bit lower to be able to fit in the 1142 and go past the original recommended size of an 1134. Let me get my phone back out, I've got some numbers again. Right, so me going up Hardknott Pass, I had an average speed of 3.9 miles per hour. Not very fast. With my gearing, I had an average cadence of 69 revolutions per minute. If you was to have a 34, which a lot of people would consider good climbing gears, which for most climbs, I'd agree, it's decent, I used to use it. I would have had, for the same speed, an average cadence of 49, so that's down by 20. That is a lot harder. You may notice in some of the videos as well, I don't stand up when I'm pedaling. I'm able to get up most of these climbs without needing to stand up. It's because of my gearing. When I had a 34, I would have been standing up because you're having to push that hard down on the pedals due to your low cadence. Now, if you was to go even lower, an even harder gear, say someone's got a 34 on the front and maybe a 30 on the back, that cadence of 49 then drops to 43. Now that's getting to the point where it's extremely painful. And if you did it at the beginning of the ride, you may have a fighting chance. If you are at the end of the ride, unless you're a mountain goat, a veteran going up the Fred Whitton, light as a feather, extremely strong, you are going to struggle on that gear ratio. And that's why beforehand, get your gears sorted. And also get your gears sorted a couple of months beforehand, so you can go out on the climbs for your training rides and get used to using that load gear, because it did take a bit of getting used to when I first did it, because it's very, very different. So you've gone from like having to really push hard, having to stand up, to you can actually sit down, still stand up if you want to, it's a personal preference to you. You just get used to that change of cadence. You're still putting down the same power, but it's, instead of going through a lot of force, you're getting that power more through the speed of your cadence, because you're able to do it a bit faster. And I find that that makes climbing a lot more repeatable. Ever since I've changed that gear ratio about 2.5 years ago, I've found climbing far more enjoyable. There'd be climbs before which was like, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, that's too steep, that's too hard. Or I'd have to purposely plan it at the beginning of the ride, or instead of going wild and planning 8 or 9 climbs in a day, which I often do when I go on my big adventures, I'd only have 2, 3, 4 at an absolute push, depending on how difficult the climbs are. So it makes it a lot more repeatable, because it doesn't tax your legs as much, because you're not having to use as much force. And that just, when you're doing a big event like this, like the Fred Whitton, or what I'm doing this weekend, the Struggle Dales, and you got 9 climbs, it makes sense to get gearing like this, unless you're a mountain goat, like I said. Then on the actual day, you got to think about your pacing. It's like, I could have gone off a lot faster earlier on in the ride, and it wouldn't have been a problem early on. But I knew by studying the Fred Whitton route that it was going to be a struggle and the most challenging at the end. So I had to try and make sure I didn't burn too many matches early on, and I had some kind of energy reserves at the end. So at times there's people flying past on certain climbs, or even on the flat, and I was like, no, I'm not going to let him go, knowing that I can save my legs at the end. And that was a crucial part of getting up there. You're not going to turn up to Hardknott Pass fresh, but you're trying to turn up with as least damage done to your legs as humanly possible. And that just comes through pacing yourself. If you're someone who's going for a particular time, like sub 7 and whatnot, then that's a bit different. But if you were someone like me, who was doing the Fred Whitton for the first time, and my aim was just to finish it and try and get up every climb without stopping, then taking your time, having an early start. I was out the door at 6 AM, so I was one of the first ones out, and time saved is time earned at the end, allowing you to go a little bit slower. If you was to turn up late, that would be an issue, and you're catching time, especially if you're worried about the cut-off times. So by going a little bit early, I was even more able to pace myself. Then we got to the feed station, which is, if I remember right, about 10-12 miles before the Hardknott Pass climb. So I stopped off, refueled, hydrated, got some food in, and I didn't rush off, because I was okay time-wise from the cut-off time. Allow the legs to calm down a little bit, and then when I left to go onto Hardknott Pass, even though it was pretty flat most of the way there was one slight lump, which was what, Stanton Bridge, I think it was. It was like, I'm just going to take it steady, just take it steady, just let the blood go back into the legs, try and get rid of as much lactic acid as possible, which you've gained from the likes of Hardknott Pass, Newlands Pass, and so on. Then the actual climb itself, the Hardknott is divided, I'd say, into 3 sections. So underneath the tree covers, it's 25% extremely steep for the first third, and just afterwards going up some of the slopes. Afterwards, it's still steep, but in comparison, the middle third, I think it averages something like 7-8%. and there is actually a small period where it's actually flat. I went stupidly slow during that period, just to like let the legs try and recover a little bit, because what is about to come is going to be war on your legs. And that just allowed your legs to just catch your breath back, let your heart rate come down a little bit, try and get some of that lactic acid out. And that part then allowed me to have freshish legs to attack the final third, which has the 33% hairpins afterwards, which quite a few people forget about because they're so fixated on the hairpins. After the second hairpin, it is, I think, average is a bit stupid, like 16-17% to the summit for just under a third of a mile. Really, really tough. Arguably, you could say it's tougher than the actual 33% hairpins themselves. And again, the gearing I spoke about, having that really, really helped. Right, I've waffled on here and gone on tangents and so on. Hope some of this is useful. Even if you're not doing the Fred Whitton, you may be doing another event. It may be a climb which may not be, on paper, numbers wise, as hard as Hardknott Pass, but you've got a climb which mentally is like, oh my god, that is really, really tough, I'm concerned. Using some of these strategies will very much help you get up Hardknott Pass, not Hardknott Pass, the climb which you are thinking about trying to take on. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm very happy to try and respond and try and help out as possible. There may also be someone else in the community who may have a response which will tongue-tied, which you may find useful and helpful. If you haven't already, I'll link in the description and in the pinned comment my Fred Whitton vlog. I've had lots of very kind comments about that. Thank you for that, everyone. Right, well, I'll leave you to it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time up another climb on 2 wheels.